Welcome, everybody. We have our class here about the earliest Islam, the Meccan period, and our question, is it a template for conflict resolution between the Abrahamic religions? And also, is the Quran Zionist in this period at the outset, the dawn of Islam? Presented by myself, Yisrael Naaman, from the Naaman Academy. So here we go. First of all, we are going to have a brief review of what is included in this period. We're speaking for about 12, 13 years of the Meccan period, 610 to 622. Just to review, there is the issue of hell for polytheists and idolaters, and we'll see why. Heavenly rewards for those who are righteous. A discussion of the prophets in Judaism, and a mention of Jesus, right? What is often known as the apostles. We have them listed here. We'll be going through them. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Lot, Joseph, Moses, Aaron, Exodus, Jonah. Issues about the afterlife and the land of Israel, or the promised land known as the blessed land in the Quran. Discussions in Christianity. Was Jesus the Messiah? Yes, no. A lot of respect, not only for the Torah and Jewish writings in the Old Testament, but certainly for the Gospels as well. Muhammad calls his first believers, known as the Creed, to follow him, and they do, and believes that they are in the footsteps of previous biblical prophecies from Judaism and Christianity, and that there is this continuity of warning the unbelievers of what is the correct path, right? As usual, there's opposition faced by anybody coming with this monotheistic message at the time, and the righteous path is offered. On the right-hand side, we have drawings, paintings of different biblical scenes. Actually, all three are mentioned in the Quran, but two of them are done by Islamic artists. Okay, so it shows where there's a lot of overlap between Islam and Judaism, Christianity. Judaism in particular. The early Muslims were persecuted by polytheists, those who believe in many gods, had idols, or whatever else, and they found themselves in a very, very difficult situation. They rejected Islam and Muhammad, but it wasn't just a matter of a theological rejection, it was a matter of persecution. And Muhammad and his small group of followers at the outset in Mecca were actually ostracized and forced into a 3-year exile outside of Mecca. His own Quraysh tribe are the ones who led much of the charge. Not only were there a socioeconomic boycott and actually attacks against early Muslims in this 12, 13-year period, but it became extremely dangerous. There was even a murder and tortures of the early followers. Now, two tribes had been persecuting the early Muslims more than others, and they're mentioned quite a bit in the Quran. The Thamud and Ad tribes, they themselves had apostles from amongst their own people sent to them to tell them that their behavior was incorrect and to bring them the word of one God. And they were rejected, and the hand of God struck them down. And the comparison is made, just like we have in Sodom and Gomorrah in the Hebrew scriptures. It's also compared to what happened to Pharaoh when he persecuted the Israelites and then pursued them when they fled into Sinai, and his armies were destroyed when the waters of the Red Sea came crashing down on their heads. Islamic damnation of polytheism. Now we have to put this into context. The polytheists were persecuting the early Muslims. The early Muslims were not particularly responding. They wanted just their message to be heard and to be left alone. And therefore, we do find that there's condemnation that they'll go to hell, which, of course, is quite logical. It's mentioned quite a bit in the early surahs. Just to read one of them from Surah or chapter 18. Those who persecute men and women of the believers and then do not repent will have the punishment of hell, will have the punishment of the burning. Okay? And then also that one should not be a hypocrite, whether one is a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim. Okay? This is theology of the Middle East, monotheism. We know in all religions, people of the book, meaning Jews and Christians, who disbelieve, and the idolaters will be in the fire of hell, remaining in it timelessly forever. They are the worst of the creatures. Okay? So if one is being hypocritical and undermining belief, so this is common that one cannot achieve the heavens. And in this case, it said, no, they will face damnation. Okay, we can check the theologies of other religions. There are many different perspectives, but there's nothing unusual about what is written here. Okay, so let's move to positive perspectives, in particular with Judaism. So we have in Surah or chapter 37 a fairly long explanation of Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Moses, Elijah, Lot, and Jonah, right? Bringing them all together. There's an entire chapter dealing with Joseph, which actually is quite accurate when you compare it to what's written in the Hebrew Scriptures, although it's much more concise. Issues of Pharaoh and his persecution of the Israelites. It is said that he had an evil advisor by the name of Haman. Now, we often come across this, that seems to be incorrect. Historically, or at least in the Hebrew Scriptures, Haman was a Persian. The two are put together. My suggestion, don't take it so literally. What it says is that there are those who persecuted a people that God chose to bring morality and ethics to the world and had a covenant. And the Pharaoh also had an advisor that was evil. Fair enough. Okay. Discussions of Israelite wisdom and prophethood during the Exodus, and that is in several chapters here. I mentioned Surah 45. And that the whole Exodus was a test and gaining of knowledge, divine knowledge, and heading off to the promised, or as the Quran calls it, blessed land. In other words, the Quran and Torah not only overlap, they reinforce each other here. Scriptures are given to Moses, the Israelites, for sure, and there's discussion of certain miracles, such as when Moses and Aaron faced down the Pharaoh, and the issue with putting down the staff and having it turn into snakes, on and on, not go into it. And yes, the splitting of the Red Sea and the drowning of the Egyptians who were persecuting the Israelites. We have beyond that, David, King David, and King Solomon are seen as great heroes. And there's even the recounting of Solomon receiving the Queen of Sheba, right? In other words, passing on the message to the area of Ethiopia today. And we do know that early Islam had connections to the Christians in Ethiopia. So all this connects sort of as a triangle. Okay, and on the right-hand side, we have a painting of King Solomon receiving the Queen of Sheba. The Torah and Quran, Judaism and Islam in particular, if we take Surah chapter 28, and I'll read here. But when the truth came to them from us, they said, if only he was given the like of what Moses had been given. Did they not deny what had been given to Moses earlier? They claimed, now who are they? The polytheists, those who are against Judaism, against Christianity, and against Islam. Okay, we need to make that clear. And a quote, right? There's a quote within the Quran of what these deniers are saying. Both scriptures are works of magic, supporting each other. Adding, we truly deny both. Now, it doesn't exactly say scripture, it says both. It's inferred because of previous verses. But what they mean is both scriptures, and that these are magic. In other words, they have no foothold in reality. And it's talking about Torah and the Quran, the early Quran. Surah 10, verse 93. Indeed, we settled the children of Israel in a blessed land and granted them good, lawful provisions. Okay. You have the same in the Hebrew writings. Surah 26. This is certainly a revelation from the Lord of all worlds, which the trustworthy Spirit, when it says that, it means Gabriel, so that's sort of in quotes, brought down into your heart, O prophet, so that you may be one of the warners in a clear Arabic tongue. And it has indeed been foretold in the scriptures of those before. Was it not sufficient proof for the deniers that it has been recognized by the knowledgeable among the children of Israel? In other words, the understanding is Moses was sent to the Israelites by God, meaning the Jews, and now the same message is being given to the Arabian peoples in Arabic by the prophet Muhammad, also chosen by God to be a prophet, an apostle, the messenger. And both are doing the same job. They have the same function. So now we have the Quran, which mentions the covenant, or in today's terms, Zionism. And we'll read Surah 20, verses 80-81. O children of Israel, we saved you from your enemy and made a covenant with you on the right side of Mount Tur. Mount Tur is Sinai, a covenant, a holy agreement between God and his people, and sent down to you manna and quails, saying, eat from the good things we have provided for you, but do not transgress in them, or my wrath will befall you. It's the same message given in Torah, in the Hebrew scriptures, repeated here in the Quran. Next, Surah 7, verse 137, about the lands east and west. And so we made the oppressed people successors of the eastern and western lands, which we had showered with blessings. In this way, the noble word of your Lord was fulfilled for the children of Israel for what they had endured. East and west of the Jordan River. That's what Islamic commentators have said for generations. It's talking about the land of Israel of today, but also including the eastern side. Continuing on. Surah chapter 17, verses 103, 104. Talks about an end-time redemption concerning the Israelites, Jews. So Pharaoh wanted to scare the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, but we drowned him and all those with him. And we said to the children of Israel after Pharaoh, reside in the land, but when the promise of the hereafter comes to pass, we will bring you all together. What does that mean? Okay, that the promise of the hereafter is repeating what is in the 5th book of Torah, Deuteronomy, at the end, chapters 28 through 30, where it says explicitly that being righteous, the Israelites will return to the land and those who have even passed on to the next world, meaning in the hereafter. The Quran stands firmly behind that promise. So here we can see that the Quran not only overlaps Islam, Judaism, but fully supports the understanding that the Israelites, Jewish people, in the covenant, fulfilling it, inherit the land of Israel. It is theirs. It's part of the agreement. And that in the afterlife, when the Messiah comes, everybody will be brought back to that land. So let's review. We are speaking here of Islamic acceptance, Jews, Christians, from the early Meccan period, from the year 610 to the year 622. Okay, there's a full acceptance of Jews, Israelites, and a Zionist understanding. You can put Zionism in quotes because that's what we call Jewish nationalism today. An acceptance of Christians with corrections that we didn't really go into, but the understanding being that Jesus was not a Messiah. He's a prophet, very well revered in Islam, known as Isa. But it's considered that there was a mistake in understanding. There needs to be a repentance of the polytheists, meaning convert to Islam, and they'll be forgiven, and that is the forgiveness. Non-repenting polytheists, or Jews, Christians, who are not following their scriptures, okay, because it speaks of their scriptures as well, cannot achieve a place in heaven, but rather will go to the fires, to hell, right? Now we move on, just for a moment, to Surah 3, which is in the later Medina period, which is, say, less open and forgiving. But in any case, what does it say? He has revealed to you, O Muhammad, right, to you, meaning Muhammad, the book of truth, confirming what was before it. And he revealed the Torah and the gospel. In other words, even in the Medina period, which is less, call it pluralistic, this acceptance of what is written in Torah and gospel is correct. The Quran was sent to confirm, complete, and correct previous Jewish and Christian revelations. And I'll add in here, doesn't really speak that much of correcting what was in Jewish writings, but a bit more in Christian. but it wasn't of the greatest significance. Not at the time. Israel, the Jewish state, proves that the Meccan attitude was correct because it was said that the redemption, right, of the Jewish people, and the proof of that redemption is Jews living in the land of Israel, being brought together, those on earth now and those from the hereafter. In other words, upholding the covenant. The Jewish Islamic redemption theology of the early Quran is proven by today's reality of a state of Israel. Okay, and therefore, why is there a conflict? We can always put that in quotes. People who understand this say, wait a minute, there's something that's not adding up. Okay, so here we have very much a bridge from Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and it's all there in the scriptures. Okay, this presentation was brought to you through the Naaman Academy, educating to safeguard humanity from Islamic Jihad agenda. That's the extreme agenda we're familiar with. We just discussed today the understanding pluralistic perspectives, which is where I personally believe, and many others, that's where the solutions are. And, of course, dealing with the global anti-Semitism. This is what we do at the Naaman Academy. We investigate these topics to try to build a better world. Our credits, because you always have to give them for the topics we covered. And we're always open for your questions. You can send them to us, Naaman Academy, our website, www.naamanacademy.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Take care and have a good one.